Energy, and I'd like to ask the moderator, Hamida Marastapur, and the speakers, Pinakin Patel and Mohammed Shahidapur, to come and join me up here. So as I said, I'm going to say something about the moderator and then allow the moderator to introduce our excellent panelists today. So this is really great because Hamida Rastapur is Mr. Energy around here. He runs and leads WISER, the Wanger Institute for Sustainable Energy Research. But in that mantle, he's taken it upon himself to galvanize our student body into a sustainability effort, to galvanize our student body to be involved in everything related to energy. He's always telling me, Alan, we need to do this now. We need to do the next thing. We need to do something else. And it's always right. And not only that, he's a great researcher in his own right. He's a chemical engineer that's very well known for his work in combustion. If anyone wants to do anything about computational fluid dynamics and ignition and combustion, actually you'll find out that not only did he write the book on this, but the software that everyone uses is actually the software that he and his group had developed over the years. So he's very well known in this area in his own right, but the great thing is he's a leader that can bring people together and can really get things going and get projects going. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Hamid, and now it's up to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know who he was talking about, but anyway. I'm Hamid Rastapur. I was a student. I'm alumni of here. Gas engineering, 75, I got my master, and 78, I got my PhD. We start this WISER Institute. I'm director of the WISER Institute, and also Henry Linden Chair in Engineering. Linden was also alumni of IIT. So, and we established this WISER Institute in 2009, thanks to Ralph Wanger and Bob Galvin, and putting the initial financial support for that. So the WISER and its Galvin Center is really an umbrella organization which look at all the activities in energy area at IIT. We deal with all different colleges and then departments. There are about 60 faculty members involved. We encourage faculty to do interdisciplinary research and education. We have seed funding that to encourage people to work together. Each year we will give seed funding, and also we work very hard to attract the best, the most intellectual first students, secondly the professor. The last few years we will be able to attract 3 chair professors, and now our team of 5 chair professors is complete. And we also work very closely with the student organization and the campus sustainability, because we cannot preach but not do it yourself. So we are doing it ourselves, and IIT campus is one of the most sustainable campuses in the country. The WISER philosophy is that least cost strategy toward carbonizations of the fuel. You figure it out yourself. Okay, but this is not mine. I wanted to introduce our panel. We have 2 distinguished panelists. Originally, it was scheduled as C.J. Warner, of the CEO of the Zafire company, to come. She had some family emergency, and could not make it. Professor Shahidapur was gracious enough to accept our invitations and participate in the panel. He's a director of the Galvin Institute at IIT, Galvin Center at IIT. Let me introduce Mr. Patel. Mr. Patel is a graduate of chemical engineering, 1977. He has been actively engaged in developments of all types of fuel cell for over 3 decades. And currently, he's the director of special systems and research at Fuel Cell Energy, focusing on advanced technology development for production of hydrogen and clean power from municipal wastewater. Mr. Patel holds 15 US patents and authored more than 100 publications and presentations in this field. The second person, Professor Mohammed Shahidapur, is currently Bodine Chair Professor in Electrical Computer Engineering, Associate Director of the WISER, and Director of the Robert W. Galvin Center for Electricity Initiatives at IIT. He has been faculty members for 29 years, where he received the IIT's Excellence in Teaching Award and several other awards from the IEEE. He has been Dean of Graduate College and the Chair of the Electrical and Computer Engineering. He's expert in electrical power system optimization and control with a specific interest in the modeling of electricity market with microgrids and sustainable energy application. He's co-author of close to 400 publications and 6 books on electric power system planning, operation, and control. It's a great pleasure to have both of you. The way we run this panel is I ask them to give 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes, first talk about what they are doing, and then follow by some questions and discussion. Mr. Patel?
Thank you, Hamid. So this 5-minute, should I go with the slides?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Since it's 5 minutes, I think I'd like to show you some slides, but I like to say it's really great feeling coming back to where I got my graduate education, and also great feeling to see my mentor and professor, Dr. Vasan, in the audience, and him still teaching and encouraging, connecting the dots. I'd like to say this technology that started about 50 years ago, started at IIT Chicago, at IGT and IIT. Dharam is here from IGT, and Dr. Baker, who was founder of our company, he was also IIT alum, and that's the reason because Dr. Baker was also Dr. Vasan's student. And don't know he remembers or not, but 37 years ago, he told me, Pinakin, go to Bernie Baker, he will take good care of you. And I still work for that company, and company has moved on pretty well. So I'll show you quickly some major achievements and what can be done with the innovation. I work for Fuel Cell Energy. I like to call this company as fuel cells are us, like toys are us. We make all fuel cells. We take care of complete from design, manufacturing, installation. In fuel cell field, it's very difficult to do all of it, because when you are jack of all, you are good for nothing. Okay. But we have been able to do pretty well, because the roots started here, and a lot of IIT graduates work for Fuel Cell Energy. There are probably about a dozen of us there. We have over 3 billion kilowatt-hour power produced in about 9 countries now. So the fuel cell that was very tiny started here 50 years ago. I'll show you some pictures. You can see on the left-hand side, somebody's holding the fuel cell. That's the biggest fuel cell in the world, 10,000 centimeter square area. It also can make its own hydrogen. It doesn't need hydrogen. And that was the initial work Bernie Baker did in his thesis, and it's now practical. The person holding, there is a stack, and on the right-hand side, you see 3 major products, started with 1.4 megawatt. That's 1,400 homes. The one at the bottom, we started this year, is good for about 59 megawatt. That's the biggest in the world. That's good for 60,000 American homes. It's running in Korea. And renewable power, our unit can run on biogas as well as natural gas without any loss in efficiency or power. This is the biggest unit, 2.5 megawatt in California, producing power from municipal wastewater. This is the fuel cell park. When we built 1 megawatt unit, it took 2 acres of land. Now we have 60 times bigger system and 5-acre land. And it's built in like 14 months. And also not built in USA. So it's American-made fuel cells, exporting American-made products in Korea and producing power there. So there's a lot of innovation in it, and I'm very pleased that innovation is also one of the themes for today's and tomorrow's discussion. What we are doing now is Fuel cell cars, you have heard about them. We are providing hydrogen for those cars. Our fuel cell can make extra hydrogen. This picture shows first of a kind unit in the world running in Los Angeles area that uses biogas as a fuel, produces power, and hydrogen for fuel cell cars. This project was recognized as for R&D award this year by DOE in Washington, D.C. And there's a lot of things you can do with hydrogen, sustainability and microgrid. In the discussions we'll talk about. This hydrogen is a good solution for many new areas. One of that is, you have heard about the Hurricane Sandy. I did not have power for 10 days in my home. Never heard like that in USA. You can utilize hydrogen as energy storage and then support solar and wind. And this is one of the concepts that we are working on. And this slide I was going to use with Cynthia Warner, another alum. Her project is making algae biodiesel from waste biomass and grow using sun and then get biodiesel. We can provide clean CO2 to them and then utilize their waste biomass to run fuel cells. So sustainability and microgrid, I think we'll have some good opportunities to talk. And another one is the chemical application in petrochemical refinery business. This technology is very unique. Because of the shale gas, we are seeing a huge opportunity of this technology, and I'll be happy to discuss as we go along. The CO2 capture, carbonate fuel cell is our technology. It has a carbonate ion, and because of that, we can capture CO2 from power plant exhaust and produce power. So nobody has done that. And one of the students we work with, Hussein Gazelia, is actually leading this project and capturing CO2 from power plant exhaust, producing power. So,
okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patel. Muhammad, you want to say a few words?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Muhammad Shahidapur. I joined IIT in 1983, so this is my 31st year at IIT, and my work has always been in the area of electric power. And I was saying to someone the other day that it's kind of depressing that the business started growing when I'm getting closer to retirement. I remember in the 80s when we were offering courses in electric power at IIT, the business wasn't very glamorous. We could get maybe 10 students in a course. These days, the subject of energy is so hot, and this notion of electrification of our society is getting so interesting that every time we offer a course on the subject of electric power, we get 80, 90 students. And these are all students at the master's, at the PhD, very few undergraduates. But the point is that the subject is so interesting that we get people from all over the world come here and study with us. So I run a center, as Professor Arasapur pointed out, called the Galvin Center for Electricity Innovation. We are part of WISER, Wenger Institute that Dr. Arasapur directs. The reason we call the place Galvin Center is because the whole notion and the business that we have in the subject of sustainable energy in my area of interest started by Bob Galvin. Remember in 2006, he had a meeting at O'Hare where he invited a number of people, and he said we need to do something about the business of electricity in this country, because I think when we had the 2003 blackout in the eastern part of the United States, he and his wife were having dinner in Manhattan, and all of a sudden the place turned dark. And he was saying, why is it that we live in a most significant country in the world and we still cannot enjoy our dinner? So he said he had a few pet projects toward the end of his life, and one of them was energy. So he gathered a number of people, and at that time he was talking about energy independence and and distributed energy. He never brought up the word microgrid. Nobody knew what it was. But after he finished his 2-day business, we approached him and we said, why don't you try your idea at IIT? This was back in 2006. And he provided us with some seed money. He was one of the great supporters of this institution. And we started this notion of building IIT as an entity that could be operated as an island. And in 2008, we received large funding from the Department of Energy, and then we started building the university as a microgrid. So where you are now, this is loop number 3. We are able to operate the entire campus as a microgrid. And what it means is that if there is a major outage in the Chicago area, we will be able to island the campus and run it as a separate system. So this microgrid that we have, which is the only one in the country that the entire 52 buildings at the university can be operated as an island. We basically run it for 3 major reasons. One is economics, reducing our total cost. We save university about $1 million roughly, all the figures that we have from our facilities department. We also enhance the reliability, and the third one is resiliency. So if there is ever, we don't have hurricanes here, but if there is a major outage in the Chicago area, then we can keep the lights on at the university. So if you ever visit us, you get a chance to visit us, we are located on the 16th floor of IIT Tower. And we can demonstrate how this microgrid operates, what the advantages are. We're also adding a number of features to the university, some very interesting features to the point that we are increasing the level of distributed generation, the battery, the wind unit on campus. Basically, we have converted the entire campus to a living laboratory. So we, in a sense, practice what we preach. And the most exciting part of building this microgrid is that students are the ones who are doing it. So students actually are the primary engineers who are getting this microgrid done. So many of them end up getting pretty good jobs. These days, our students in the area of energy are very marketable because of the work that they do here and the name that we have sort of put on the IIT as far as microgrid operation is concerned. So I just wanted to point out that if you ever get a chance, come and visit us. And we have a symposium starting on Tuesday here at Herman Hall called the Great Lakes Symposium on Smart Grid and the New Energy Economy. Usually get about 400 people, very notable speakers. So if you're around, please join us for the symposium. Also, one element of a microgrid that we never got a chance to work on because we ran out of money was the notion of cybersecurity. So that's one area that we are building up. We are starting a new center that going through the process, and hopefully we'll have the ribbon cutting on Monday. It's called the C-SMART, which is Center for Smart Grid Application Research and Technology. So quite a bit of activities that students turn out to be on the heart of it, center of it. So we are very proud that we have students who actually can do this kind of work. And I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have. Yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to throw a few questions and get your opinion. Everybody talks about climate change these days, much broader picture. I want your opinion on this issue, on the decarbonization of the global energy consumption, on CO2 production, while we don't want to change our standard of living and well-being of the human beings, but also the climate change is a huge issue. Any comments?
I think this is very important, climate change. The question is, how do you convert that into opportunity? And I think the word is the innovation. You definitely need to push for innovation. I would give an example of hybrid car. I was here at IIT, 10 miles per gallon in 1975 was a good miles per gallon. Okay. Now, Prius gives 50, 55 miles to a gallon. But you're not losing any comfort or anything. What you're getting is really high-tech car. Now, Tesla, for example, energy storage. So the word is really hybrid. You need to look at putting pieces together and get 1 + 1 = 2, that will get better efficiency, better economics, and better for environment. So I think use it as an opportunity, and innovation really can be built on that.
Mohammed, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, there is no question that, at least in the United States, the trend is towards a cleaner environment. At this time, there is no new coal units being commissioned in the US. Basically, the units that they're building in the US are either natural gas or renewables. There is a plan to increase the number of natural gas units in the United States thanks to the lower price for natural gas. But no question that the trend is going to be toward a cleaner environment. Of course, that's only in the US. If you go to the other side of the world, China and India, there's still quite a bit of pollution. So whether that's going to be at some point transferred back to the United States, I don't know. But the point is that I think whatever happens in the United States, sooner or later, is copied everywhere else in the world. So I think the trend is going to be towards cleaner environment. But one element that's going to play a major role in this notion of environment, greener society is the consumers. So we as consumers are the ones who are going to participate, want that. Many other activities in the world, whether it was lowering the cigarette consumption or smoking and all that, started by consumers. So we are the ones who have to understand that we need a clean environment. We are the ones who have to understand that pollution is going to hurt everybody, and move toward that by introducing demand response, more of cleaner energy, and utilization of electric vehicles, and all the other components that makes the environment cleaner. And in a sense, industry is going to try, as I said, more of natural gas units, but that's not going to be the end of it unless we as consumers also believe that cleaner environment is going to be the name of the future.
You brought up the natural gas, and of course everybody hears about natural gas and tight gas or shale gas, and the technology is developed because of the directional drilling. But actually this technology, which is developed and produce a lot of natural gas, and now will give us opportunity to really move forward and do a better job in planning a very comprehensive energy policy. My question is focused not only on natural gas, but also water. Whenever there is a natural gas and production, there is a water. Wherever there is energy, there is a water consumption. What is your opinion of about the plan, the things that we are doing present? Are we using efficiently water and energy? Can we do better? What do you think the ways? How can we learn from your experience what the society should do in order to be a much better society and move faster toward this path to sustainability? Any of you want to pick up?
I think this is a very good one. For any society, water and energy are the most important part. I have not seen any power plant that does not use water. Okay. But that doesn't mean that the future power plants cannot be built without making use of water. The 59 megawatt plant I showed, it does use water, but it's very minimum amount of water. But next generation water we are running in California doesn't need any cooling. It's a self-cooling because it cools by reforming, and it makes water. So you can actually have a power plant that doesn't need water, but also provides clean water. Okay. Another thing is CO2. Again, I will go back. What can you do with that CO2? I was at a meeting with it was oil companies and NASA, and I saw a very interesting drill. Today, the shale gas drilling takes place where all this water use, chemical use comes in. This drill works based on CO2. They use liquid CO2 as a drilling medium and come out with 800 time expansion and then digs into the rock. If you use that drill, which is right now experimental, but it uses CO2 that we are worried about, and it does the drilling. Has no use of water, and no use of chemicals. Of course, it's not ready. Okay. But this could be the opportunity for sustainability, is what can you do as new tools? Okay. So of course, the efficiency is another part, I would say, that will cut down all the emissions and go to sustainability. So when I started studying fuel cells, I was told that you are competing with turbine. You are competing with engines. Now, after almost 40 years in the field, I know I was wrong, and I was told wrong. Fuel cell turbine hybrid holds highest electrical efficiency record, 70% electrical efficiency. So now look at the CO2 emissions and look at all other things with it. So it all goes with the innovation and how you convert problem into opportunity.
Ahmed, you want to add something?
You know, after 2003 Northeast blackout in the United States, the government, and in particular national labs in the US, realized that they need to revisit this notion of critical infrastructures. At that time, we figured that we figured that if we make electricity to be more reliable, then the society will be able to survive if something goes wrong. What we realized is that electricity, water, natural gas, telecommunications, all these entities, basically critical infrastructures, are so interdependent that if you want to have a sustainable society and sustainable operation, you cannot just take one of them and make sustainable. You have to consider all those elements of the society and make sure that you work on every one of them and make sure that the interdependency is in place properly in order to have a more sustainable environment. Right now, the critical issue that basically the government and different entities are working on is this interdependency of electricity and natural gas. And it looks like that the business problem is getting bigger because now as the price of natural gas drops, they're building more combined cycle natural gas units in the United States. The issue is whether we have enough pipelines available. And what we are learning is that natural gas, availability of natural gas is going to have a significant impact on the operation of those natural gas units, and it's going to basically impact the usage and availability of electricity. So the interdependency of these elements, whether it's gas, electricity, water, need to be considered holistically in order to make sure that we come up with a better solution all over.
Thank you. If I summarize that, Pinnacle is really betting on innovation and technology to solve the problem, and Professor Shadi for putting up connectivity and how the different electricity and the gas should be connected to each other, and also looking at the efficiency and changing the infrastructure, particularly for the renewable. We need a significant investment on energy storage. We can continue that, but I wanted to know if anybody in the audience, this was not part of the things they told me, have any burning questions, want to ask panels, please ask. Any questions, comments? Yes.
I have a burning question about where the economics of your stationary fuel cells is going. How does it compare to more traditional? I know there are a lot of reasons that are not economic for using these fuel cells, but how does it compare? What do you find in the marketplace across the world now in terms of the economics?
I think that's a very good question. The fuel cells capital costs, when I started working, they were well about $20,000 per kilowatt. And the commercial power plants are in the range of $1,000, $1,500 per kilowatt. So a lot of work has happened and taken place. We are, in 20 years, we have brought it down to below $3,000 per kilowatt. So now, with the small incentives, like in Korea, well, they have feed-in tariff, and feed-in tariff you compete head-on. There is no, like what we just talked about, the grid support. Fuel cells can provide grid support for solar and wind. Right now it's sunny. You can have all the PV in California and you don't need any electricity. Their problem is to back off from the grid. Now, energy storage and hydrogen and fuel cells. So what we are doing is create a value. What we are finding is the policy is not there. Korean policy is much better than US policy. I'm sorry to say that. Because there, you produce power, you can put in the grid. If your fuel cell works, you get paid. Otherwise, you go out of business. Here, on IIT, in your grid, you can produce power, support your local grid, okay. You put it in the Chicago grid to support the city, you'll have a lot of interconnection issues. So we are working on the policy area to get value proposition. So what we can do with the hydrogen we make, okay, so every megawatt of fuel cell can support 5 megawatt of wind. So we are trying to get solar and wind as partner rather than enemy, working with turbine. So it's basically collaborations. So we believe that a high value proposition based on portfolio, fuel cells have a very good role. I was also told that batteries, we compete with battery. It's not true. Batteries can be charged by fuel cell. Wherever you have charging station, you put fuel cell. So Tesla wants to build electric car infrastructure for charging, and utilities are worried. You put suddenly 100,000 cars on charging in Los Angeles or in Chicago, the grid will have a problem. But you put local fuel cell on IIT campus and some other places, you can charge those cars. So you have to think in the 21st century and not the previous one. So I think today we are ready to compete with today's value proposition. If we get value of service we provide, which we are not, I think we can really compete. Like you provide grid support, it's not monetized now. You have a clean electricity, you don't get value. So those are the things. But your question is very good.
Thank you. A very quick question and very quick answer. If that's the case, yes, I'll take it.
Did you not say, maybe I misheard, that yours is still $1,000 per kilowatt versus $20 per kilowatt if you use the more traditional methodologies, like petroleum and like coal?
There's a capital cost and there's an operating cost. So capital cost of power plants, if that's what you are saying, typically $1,000, $1,500 per kilowatt range. So, but that does not include, for example, pollution costs. Coal plant is cheaper, but now they're getting more expensive. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well,
Okay, thank you.
the big thing is, well, real quick, is that what's happening is we are suffering from moving this technology faster than it can be supported, instead of what you said, in parallel, so we don't lose all the jobs of all the people who depend on the coal mines, all the people who depend on petroleum. If you just cut that off, we're bankrupt.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good point. There has to be a transition strategy. Coal has a role. Half of our electricity still comes roughly, from fossil coal-based sources. And fuel cells can be made to run on coal. And Dharam actually and his group at IGT did a lot of work on clean coal fuel cell. So,
Thank you very much. If for those people who are not in energy, or if you're getting confused, the bottom line is there is no silver bullet to solve energy problems. It's a function of time, function of location, function of technology, and investments. As Professor Shahidipur said, infrastructure is so critical, and even with the flip of finger, there is a genie here and make everything to renewable. We cannot transport the energy because we don't have infrastructure. Changing from coal to the less carbon base takes time and effort and is got throughout the years. That's basically the conclusion. Thank you very much. My time is up. My boss is standing, and thank you for listening to our conversation. I hope you enjoyed.
Well, let's thank everyone.
very nice.
And we have a quick gift for you here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me shake your hand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Yes. So the great thing about life is the degradation of the body. So I always have to wear glasses now to read anything. The next panel we're going to have is on intellectual property, and I would ask the moderator Hal Krent and the speakers John Abrahamic and Jeremy No, and Jeremy No to come and join us. So as it is, it's my job to introduce the moderator. And the moderator is someone that should be well known to all of us in Chicago because he seems to be on TV all the time. Every time there's a question about a politician and a politician that might have done something wrong, they seem to want to ask Hal about this. Hal is the dean of the law school. Hal's a great scholar in the legal realms, as well as being a person that is always asked for his opinion. But what most of you don't know about Hal, he's a great dean. He really manages a very complex organization in a very turbulent time as law school enrollments are dropping. Hal has been really amazing at keeping his faculty on the right path, and even looking at how you can be innovative in the law world to attract students in ways that we hadn't thought of before. He's pioneering some online education for law. He's the one who developed this new degree with some other people on the Mies campus here on intellectual property. So that's our Hal Krent, our Dean of the Law School, and I'll now hand over to Hal, and he has 25 minutes, and he can introduce the other panelists.
So thank you, Alan, and I'll just spend a couple minutes talking about what we've done at the law school in terms of rationalizing our connection with Illinois Institute of Technology. Then obviously I'll introduce the speakers and throw out some softball questions to them so they can engage you with the discussion of trends in intellectual property. So one of the things that we've done at the law school is try to seize the opportunity to work with the rest of the university to really boost our profile in intellectual property. So many of you know, at least what I've heard from economists, are that about 75% of our wealth in this country is tied to intangible property. Patents, trademarks, trade secrets, copyrights, and the like. So we've specialized for years in intellectual property. So for instance, we have about 35 courses in intellectual property that our students can choose among, one of the most robust offerings, I think, in the entire country. About 30 of our students each year graduate with a specialization in intellectual property, which means that a full 10% of our students graduate with an interest and specialization in intellectual property. We were the first school in the country to form an international intellectual property master's. And as Alan mentioned to you, we then spearheaded, I did with Dennis Robertson, who's here, the Associate Provost, a new non-law degree, a IIT degree in intellectual property management markets, to look about the importance that IP has taken in society and how to leverage those assets. So if you'd come to my school early this morning, the chief economist of the Patent Trade Office was there talking about empirical trends and studies in patents. And we had a conference at our school. And if you'd come last week, you'd have seen that we talk about IP in the Supreme Court. And this year, for the first time, the Supreme Court decided 8 cases involving intellectual property, and for years and years they decided none. This is just another symbolic of how important intellectual property is for our economy and how important it is for lawyers. And of course, as lawyers, we try to create value for our clients, and so that is why we have turned to our 2 professionals today to talk about that. First is Jeremy No. He's a partner with McDonald, Bain, and Holbert here in Chicago. The thing to know about that is the first name, McDonald, is also an alum. His specialization is in patent litigation, patent licensing, and in portfolio management and client counseling. He is a graduate of the University of Illinois, undergraduate in chemical engineering, where he stood for part of his life, and then he came and decided to become the valedictorian at Chicago-Kent, and he received his degree in 2000. John Abrahamic, to his left, is a partner with Steptoe & Johnson, which is a national law firm. He also specializes in IP litigation with a specialty in pharmaceutical and in Hatch-Waxman litigation. He's also a chemical engineering grad, but here at IIT, so he's a double Scarlet Knight or something like that.
Hawk, yes.
Hawk, thank you. Scarlet Hawk. And he He, like Jeremy, was also in the law review at Chicago Kent. So, to start us out, and then we'll start with Jeremy first, what are some of the trends you've seen in enforcement and protection of international intellectual property?
Well, it remains the case that enforcement in certain countries, primarily Russia, India, and China, remains a problem. There are issues of mandatory licensing that exist there. Counterfeiting is still rampant in China. So it's still a difficult problem in those countries. Some of the other countries, in Europe particularly, the enforcement is easier, but the costs of procuring the patents are about 10 times as high as they are in the United States. The reason for that is that the European Patent Office acts as a clearinghouse. The advantage during the patent examination process is that you're talking only with one patent office, but there comes a point where you need to validate the patent in each of many individual countries, each of which have their own fees and rules. And so the best chance at this point of foreign enforcement remains in the countries of United Kingdom, France, Australia, and Western Europe.
Okay, John?
If anyone comes up with a catchy phrase for someone who graduated from IIT and Kent, let me know. My colleagues from South Bend who have gone to Notre Dame undergrad and grad school call themselves double domers, but we don't have a catchy phrase. And I apologize if I put you to sleep, because my wife likes to tell people that if they're having trouble sleeping, ask me to talk about patents. I know it's not the most exciting topic in the world, but international patent enforcement, I think, building on what Jeremy said, I think there's a perception these days that patent rights abroad in general are strengthening, but weakening at home, weakening in the U.S. Jeremy makes a good point about in Europe, there is selective enforcement, or there might be certain jurisdictions where you can enforce your patents, but the trouble there is if you want to enforce a patent in Germany, you got to file a lawsuit in Germany. If you want to enforce in the United Kingdom, you got to file your lawsuit in the United Kingdom. Patent litigation is very expensive and draining, but one thing that's on the horizon in Europe is what's called the unitary patent. And the unitary patent, the members of the European Union have adopted a system that is supposed to come into place in 2015 or 2016, where not only can you get one singular patent called a unitary patent that is effective in all jurisdictions, that lowers the costs for not only obtaining the patent but maintaining the patent, but more importantly, the legislation in Europe is putting together a unified patent court. And that unified patent court will hear all patent litigation challenges. So if you have a unified patent in Europe, you can file one patent lawsuit to have your rights enforced across the members of the European Union. That, I think, many people in the patent world believe will lead to increased enforcement in Europe. And in Asia, the number of patents that are being applied for and granted in China are going through the roof. I don't think any country is even close in terms of the growth of patent applications. The statistics that I'm aware of, I think maybe 25% increase in patent applications in China year over year in 2011, 2012. China is now the world leader in patent applications, both as a destination and as an originator, meaning companies are filing more patent applications in China, and Chinese companies are filing more patent applications than any other country. And I think Jeremy's absolutely right that there have been there's been a lot of discussion about enforcement problems in China. But enforcement is on the rise in China. There are a 40% increase in the number of IP, civil IP decisions that came out 2 years ago in China. So enforcement is increasing, and that's not surprising. considering that the acquisition of IP in China is increasing. And here on the U.S. side, as far as weakening rights, it seems in the U.S. that patent law is a very slow pendulum that swings between pro-patentee, patent owner, and pro-defendant. And right now, we seem to be in a time where rights are swinging against the patent owner. There are a lot of substantive decisions by the Supreme Court and the courts that have knocked down substantive patent rights. Damages awards are more difficult to get, large damages awards. There's a lot more scrutiny that we see from judges on the economic models used to prove damages. And there are also new procedural attacks that can be made on patents at the patent office in the U.S. So I think that's the general.
And for those of you interested in copyrights, this idea of a unitary European patent is really replicated in treaties that allow for enforcement of copyright across borders, but patents have fallen behind, which has been the big problem. But turning to the United States, one of the most, at least if you're in the invention world, one of the hottest topics has been this phenomenon of patent trolls, where people sell patents, usually patents that may not have very much validity, and try to extract huge value from companies on the threat of holding up processes and holding up sales of critical inventions. Congress has proposed legislation to address this idea of the patent assertion entities or patent trolls. And the question that I have for the panel is, what do we make of this? Is this really a sap on our economy? Should Congress act? Or has the public misunderstood this phenomenon of increased litigation? Jeremy?
I had a slide that I prepared. I don't know if you can show that. There we are. So my chemical engineering background, I can't entirely get away from graphs, even though I have a law degree now. This graph shows the growth, the phenomenal growth and the accelerating growth of patents in the United States. Starting in 1790, when 3 patents were granted. The first patent, the person acting as primary examiner, what we would call in today's terminology, was Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson. Can you imagine that, Tom taking time out of his busy day to review a patent application? It was then ultimately passed on and reviewed by President George Washington, just underscoring the importance from the birth of our nation that the Founding Fathers saw in the patenting process. And what this chart shows is that each successive million patents has come at a more and more rapid pace from 1935 to 1976, roughly every 20 years. And then it really kicks into high gear, and the time becomes shorter and shorter, 11 years, 6 years, 5 years. Now what we've seen is that 88% of the next million patents have granted in less than 3 years. If you look at patents as a measure of innovation, which of course I do, I don't completely buy the argument that patent trolls, or in a less pejorative terminology, non-practicing entities, are necessarily a brake on innovation. I think the very name non-practicing entity is sort of a misnomer. It perpetuates a common misunderstanding among the public. A patent does not give the patentee the affirmative right to do anything except exclude others from practicing his invention. A patentee himself or herself cannot practice his own invention necessarily. The Patent Office judges patentability, not non-infringement. So for example, if my colleague John had a patent to a method of treating hydrocarbon with catalyst, and I came along and developed a catalyst that was 1,000 times better than any previous known catalyst, the Patent Office would give me a patent on that. On the other hand, I could not use that catalyst to treat hydrocarbon without talking to John and getting a license on his patent. So that sort of illustrates the issue there. I think that the proposals in Congress, particularly some of the proposals from the Obama administration from June of last year, to tinker further with the patent code and maybe go so far as to institute a loser pays system for patent litigation, I think is going too far. I think that would have unintended consequences in other areas of patent litigation. My practice tends to focus a lot on so-called ANDA litigation, where a generic manufacturer is seeking FDA approval to market a drug before expiration of the patent. And in that situation, the innovator really has no choice but to litigate. So I think that's an unfair burden to institute loser pays in that situation. And I think there are existing mechanisms in the patent code that can help discourage some of the more egregious cases of these trolls or NPs, if you will, and in particular, encouraging district judges to exercise their already existing authority to award attorneys' fees in a larger number of cases, something at this point so far that they've been reluctant to do, and it's a pretty rare occurrence.
Okay, John?
I agree that patent trolls in and of themselves are not a bad thing, or don't necessarily harm innovation. The data is there that this rapid increase in patent enforcement by non-practicing entities is causing companies to have to defend from numerous patent infringement lawsuits. It costs a lot of money. And if you have to defend against a lawsuit, patent infringement lawsuit, and it's a garbage patent, that hurts innovation. If it's a good patent, it doesn't hurt innovation. That's the whole basis of the patent system. And the non-practicing entity phenomenon, I think, just started around the time when, as we talk about the patent pendulum in the United States, there was a time when it was easier to get patents. There weren't systems in place to easily challenge patents at the United States Patent Office. The doctrines were very pro-patentee. There was a glut of bad patents out there. And the first non-practicing entities or patent trolls that started buying up patents really hit on a pretty good business strategy. Let's buy a whole bunch of patents, and the only reason we exist is to own and enforce patents, and let's go sue people and make money. And the notion of enforcing patents is not doesn't harm innovation, but if you're enforcing bad patents, it does. I think what we've seen now is there's been a severe backlash against all of the litigation being brought on weaker patents. And whether or not litigation is ultimately enacted to cut back on patent trolls, I think it's already happening. The law is being changed. As we talked about, the United States law has become less pro-patentee over the years. And that's as a result of the fervor over the problems created by patent trolls. It's more difficult to enforce patents. It's more difficult to get larger patent awards. And procedures in place at the United States Patent Office to quickly challenge patents, quickly and cheaply challenge patents, means that patent trolls who now go and enforce their patents are faced with the prospect of defending those same patents at the patent office and spending money to do that. And another, the patent troll phenomenon was, I think, the convergence of the convergence of bad patents being enforced, but also no real downside to enforcing the patents. And in Europe, you don't see such a great patent troll problem because the loser pays the attorney's fees. As Jeremy said, now courts are not as reluctant to award attorneys fees in the United States. So whether or not litigation is enacted, I think the patent troll problem, to the extent it exists, is on the downswing.
To switch it up a little bit, John, we'll start with you. And lawyers obviously serve their clients, and in a narrow sense, they defend them in court or give advice to transactions. But how do you actually try to enhance value to a client in terms of their IP holdings?
Sure. That's the million-dollar question. I think...
just send the check to IIT.
In theory, if you would have a client walk into your office and say, well, I've got these wonderful inventions, let's go and file for a patent application in every country we can find on every different permutation, technological innovation in this product, and then go enforce it everywhere. If I've never had a client do that and say money is no object, if that is a description of anybody in this room, please talk to me after the after the panel discussion. But clients have budgets. They have to be smart about where they allocate their resources. And so understanding and ensuring that your intellectual property strategy is in line with your business goals is very important. So the patent and trademark and copyright and trade secret advice that you get, the people who are involved in assisting with those strategies have to understand the business and ensure that the goals are aligned with the business. And also have to understand other legal aspects, because you may have a patent strategy that runs counter to a tax strategy. And I've been involved in many decisions where that tension has existed. Tax usually wins, by the way. So the IP lawyer has to understand the business and align the business strategy with the IP strategy.
I think also it's important in advising clients to focus on the beginning steps of getting a patent, taking the proper amount of time and care to conduct a thorough prior art search so that you have a survey of the landscape, so to speak, before you start, taking care in drafting the range of claims. If you have an invention that involves a range of different parameters, certainly drafting sets of claims of successively narrower scope is advisable. You never know when there's going to be a piece of prior art found that could negate some but not all of your claims. If your patent covers only the broadest scope, you might be left with nothing after your patent has been invalidated, rather than just a subset of claims that have been invalidated. And then also the types of patents, pursuing not just excuse me, an apparatus or a composition patent, but also maybe a method of use patent, maybe even a process of manufacturing if it involves a particular drug that's difficult to make. So to try and cover enough of the landscape so that even after the carnage and the dust of the patent litigation is settled, the client is still left with rights of meaning that can still be enforced.
And obviously, as we all know, patents are monopolies. And as you, through your practice, both in your sense, both as an engineer and then as both of you as lawyers, what do you think about the monopoly? I mean, is this something that we ought to limit? Should we bifurcate or trifurcate so that there are some inventions get longer protection than other protections? Or do you think the system kind of works the way it is? Because obviously it's there trying to create a balance to stimulate innovation, but it does so at a cost. Do we have it right, or should we alter it up? Either one. Who wants to go first?
I'll jump on that. I think the current system of encouraging a limited monopoly is, on balance, a good system because it encourages disclosure. Innovation is not done in a vacuum. Innovation is built on the building blocks of others. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. And so it is in society's interest to have disclosure of innovations, and the patent process guarantees that. The government affords the patentee a certain limited monopoly, again, not to do anything affirmatively, but to exclude others from doing, in exchange for full public disclosure so that everyone else can see that advancement in human knowledge and build upon that. I think the alternative of encouraging trade secrets, I think that can succeed in very limited cases. No one to this day knows the formula of Coca-Cola. I think that's very much the exception rather than the norm, and that sort of secrecy would not be in society's interest over the long haul.
Okay. John?
I agree. An older and wiser patent lawyer once said to me that patent law is a life raft on the sea of antitrust. The antitrust preventing monopolies, and we tend to think of the word monopoly as a pejorative, but the whole purpose of the patent system is to promote innovation by giving a limited monopoly. And I've seen it work because we have clients who, when they are designing a product, we'll survey the landscape, see what patents are out there, and if they truly think that product they are designing falls under someone else's patent, they attempt to design around that patent. They try to modify their product. That leads to innovation. And so the system works, but I don't think that there should be this thought that patents give someone the right to make their product for years and years and years and no one else ever has a chance to do it, because that would be bad. It doesn't promote competition. In reality, people who enforce patents have the right to exclude, but courts also have the right to grant a license and grant economic relief as opposed to completely excluding someone who's infringing a patent. For example, let's say I'm a pharmaceutical company, I own a patent, and someone else out there is selling a drug that infringes my patent, yet having that defendant's drug on the market is essential. The judge just determines that having that drug on the market is essential for the health of the public. The judge has the authority to allow that drug on the market, and in that case, the patentee doesn't have the right to exclude.
But for a little bit of pushback, if you think about the pharmaceutical industry, as you were just talking about, the amount of investment is legion of what it takes to bring something to the market. If you think about a software patent that may be obsolete in a couple of years anyway, why do we have the same number of years for pharmaceutical with huge investment, and then something that's as tenuous as software patent will have the same length of protection? Can we meaningfully distinguish amongst groups of patent applications?
Well, I think there are laws in place to distinguish among the different industries. For example, both Jeremy and I work with pharmaceutical litigation, and there's a specific framework in place, the Hatch-Waxman litigation, that tries to balance the monopoly that a pharmaceutical company has versus the interest in promoting generic competition. And I think it's a fair point about software patents. But the way that the courts have elected to deal with that is by making it much more difficult to get a software patent. And there was a recent Supreme Court case that makes it much more difficult to get a software patent.
And I think the way that the software and telecom industries have developed practices to deal with that sort of ameliorates the problem. In those industries, it's much more typical to see pool licenses between companies, Apple and Google or Samsung, if you have, involving thousands of patents, where they each cross-license patents to each other to make sure that they're as free as possible to come out with new products. So I think that the industry practice is, at least to date, going a long way towards resolving any sort of perceived inequity in the patent length.
Well, I thank you for the panelists, and we move on to the next one.
Let's thank our panelists.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, the last of our panels is on innovation. And if I would ask Jeremy Alexis and his panelists to come and join us. And that'd be Hazem Dewani and James McMahon. And it's my job now to introduce Jeremy. Jeremy's from ID. ID is in a very special place in this university at this time, because as we've gone into this viewpoint that innovation is going to be important, and creativity among our students that leads to innovation is important, and the innovation that leads to enterprise is also important, it became clear that we should actually teach our students, our undergraduates, something about the process of innovation. And it turned out we're very fortunate, because the process of innovation has been a focus of our Institute of Design for a good number of years, and we were able to convince them that they should actually come back to the Mies campus occasionally, and that they should actually bring their knowledge of innovation and teach it to our undergraduates. And actually, Jeremy started doing that, and I think he liked it that much that when we asked him to come and really run our innovation program, to look after our idea shop, to run the iPro program, he stepped up and said, I would do that. So now we have a professor of design fully involved with us as we take this path towards innovation. Jeremy.
Thank you, Alan. And good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. Again, I'm Jeremy Alexis. I'm the director of the iPro program. I can't believe that I get to do this job every day, because I get to work with brilliant young scientists, engineers, social scientists, business people. And we get to work together on innovation, and I get to see them take the great things that they learn in all of their classes around IIT and then mix them together on interdisciplinary teams to solve some really hard problems. I've been asked to talk and moderate a panel on innovation today. And what's interesting, I think every era thinks that they're in the time of greatest change. But there's a lot of data out there to suggest that maybe we are in the time of greatest change right now. And we have two panelists with us who are in industries where that's certainly true. Jim McMahon is from Abbott Vascular, and that's in the healthcare world. You can just imagine the difficulty that a CEO and a manager of a healthcare company has these days to think about the future. Innovation has to be part of their work. And then Hazem Dwani is at the intersection of software and the world of finance. So that's also a very fascinating place to be, because both of those industries are changing very quickly, adapting to market trends and adapting to all the different changes that are going on in the world. So what I've asked our panelists to do today is give an introduction to their work, to their background, but in that introduction, use that as an opportunity to help define innovation as the way they see it in their industries. So I'm going to ask Jim McMahon to go first and talk a little bit about how he defines innovation in the healthcare world, and a little bit about his work and how innovative it's been over the past few decades.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. First I wanted to say, one of the fellow panelists, Jeremy Noah, I think you started at U of I and then you ended up at IIT, and I did the reverse path. I graduated in '81 in metallurgical engineering, and that well prepared me for earning my doctorate in metallurgical engineering at the University of Illinois. Right after that, I taught at San Diego State University. I really wanted to work in industry, so then I started with a small startup company, Advanced Cardiovascular Systems, that had just received FDA approval and patents for balloon angioplasty for treating coronary artery disease. And that company eventually became Guiding Corporation, and we were acquired by Abbott Laboratories in 2006. I live and work in Temecula, California, and let me move on to defining innovation. There's a couple different ways. One is innovation can be incremental and small improvements and iterations, and then there's the really large steps. And so I'd like to give a couple analogies. One here, I'm going to pull something out of my pocket, right? Everyone turn these off, right? So just for some audience participation, how many have one of these devices in your pocket? Okay, nearly everyone, right? So we have a lot of people celebrating their 50th anniversary from graduating from IIT. 50 years ago, this would be a dream, all the things you could do on this. So now another thing that happened 50 years ago, now no one wants to have cardiovascular disease, but we've probably all been touched by someone who's had coronary artery disease. So let me see by a show of hands if you have a close family member or friend that's had coronary artery disease or a stent placement or a balloon. Oh, it's almost the same number of hands, right? So it impacts all our lives in the same way. And so one of the things I've seen in my 28 years in the business is I've seen a lot of these large stepwise innovations that have happened in the treatment of coronary artery disease. 50 years ago, the options were very limited. It was sometimes just bed rest. Surgical procedures as an option for treating coronary artery disease were just being established. And it was actually 50 years ago. This year, Charles Dotter of the Oregon Heart Institute, he coined the term angioplasty because he had this idea that, hey, instead of surgically repairing the vasculature, we can go in a minimally invasive way and open up arteries using catheters. And then by the 1970s, late 1970s, Andreas Krungzig in Switzerland came up with the idea, hey, I can go into the heart with a balloon and open up that artery. So that was another big step in the treatment of coronary artery disease. Then the next big step was, hey, once that artery is open, it tends to restenose in the same place. And so we saw the development of metal stents that mechanically would hold up and support the artery and keep it open. And that was the next big step. But they had some of their drawbacks because although the modeling of the artery would remain open, the disease would still propagate in the same location. And so the next big innovation was, oh, let's coat those metal stents with a drug to prevent the restenosis. And so that's been very popular for the last several years. And then most recently, the next big innovative way is having, well, we have an artery, it had some disease, we opened it up, we can keep it open, but now we have this piece of metal that's still in there. And so the next wave is doing the same sort of scaffolding of the artery, but with a bioabsorbable material that over 6 to 12 months is absorbed by the body. So it does its job, it opens up the artery, it keeps it open during that critical first year. The drug is eluted into the system to prevent restenosis of the artery, and then after a year, it's a natural vessel that still remains open. So that's the type of innovation we've seen in our industry.
Great, thank you. And what's interesting about that is when you talk about innovation, you get to those big milestones that you discussed, but there's a ton of hard work that goes on in between them. And when we were talking before, Hazim was very clear about just the pace of change in the software industry. And if you could talk a little bit about that and how you define innovation, that would be great.
Sure, thanks, Jeremy. Just to give you a little background about myself, I graduated from IIT with a bachelor degree in computer engineering in 2001. After that, I started working at a small consulting firm doing software, embedded software systems. I was a software engineer building real-time components. You know, it was pretty cool. I got to work on different industries, different projects. But I had interest in finance and math, and I ended up joining a trading firm, a fairly large options market making firm in downtown Chicago. At the time, it was a transition in the industry. The trading pits were transitioning into electronic trading. The exchanges were moving their volumes and starting to focus more on electronic trading. That firm had a choice whether to build their own software or to use one of the products off the shelf to base their trading on. After doing their due diligence and figuring out what's available, they realized their needs are not met by any of the vendors out there and decided to build their own software, and I was put in charge of that project. Quickly, the project got bigger and bigger as electronic trading moved faster to the screen. And within 2 years from launching the first version of the software that I was in charge of building, their electronic trading revenue went from 2% to 40% of the total revenue of the firm. The firm grew from 100 employees to 300 employees within that time frame. And it was a very successful operation. They were very happy with the growth. It was mostly new revenue for them coming in from the electronic trading world. at the same time, I realized there's an opportunity out there for and a need in the market for a new software solution to come and solve that need for other firms that did not have the same budget to spend millions of dollars to build their own trading system. So I decided to quit my jobs and convinced two of my friends who were also IIT alums to quit their jobs as well with me and start Option City. We started the company at the end of 2006 and dedicated all our effort to build the next generation of trading software the way we felt can fill a need in the market. We launched our first application in 2008 and quickly started growing from one product to another, from one exchange to another, and became, by the end of 2009, we were profitable and growing and expanded to New York, and last year we opened an office in London, and we've been expanding and evolving as a company, whether it's our software, whether it's, and as well as filling different needs within the market. But the thing that mostly has helped us grow during that period is our ability to adapt and innovate and come up with solutions for the different needs that we face, different challenges that we face within the industry. Just to give you an idea, when we first started the company, our requirement for the software was to respond to exchange messages within 500 milliseconds. Today, our customers ask us to respond or need us to be responsive within 100 microseconds. So that's within less than 8 years. That's 5,000 times faster. They expect our software to be 5,000 times faster than it was 8 years ago. And in order for us to do that, we had to essentially almost rebuild our software every 2 years throughout this period by taking one component at a time and rebuilding it and always looking at the slowest execution path within the software and rebuilding it, and slowly we make the progress that we've made over the years to transition our software to be responsive, and in addition to quickness and responsiveness, also adding new functionality as the needs change. As you hear in the news, you probably hear HFT in the news a lot lately, and high frequency trading and all the buzz around that. You know, a lot of news venues make it sound it's a bad thing, although a lot of innovation go into the software and the technology that's involved in driving the trading industry. It's been a combination between the markets evolving and changing and the technological advancement that has been driving the financial industry forward, and innovation has been in the core of all that. You know, that's.
So as an IIT faculty member, as I hear your stories, I really think that there was no way we prepared you for everything that you were going to face in your careers. But I'd love to hear a little bit about, as you reflect back upon your education here, what were some of the core elements that really helped you in your careers, the pathways that you've taken to be innovative, and the innovations that you've actually produced?
You know, I'll answer part of that, Jeremy. And when I look back at my days at IIT, some of the topics I thought that really prepared me were actually outside my major. So being able to take courses in philosophy, statistics, I even audited a course on COBOL programming, for a few people might remember that, and I audited a class that was provided to high school physics teachers, and that ended up helping my own teaching career, so that I returned to at one time. And a lot of that, I think that broad-based education was important in being able to communicate with other groups. And, you know, whether it's presenting your ideas to the patent attorneys that are going to help write up that patent, because they're going to have to understand it beyond just your own beyond your own technical lingo and that sort of thing. So, I think that those are some of the key things for me.
Great. Azam?
Yeah, for me, what IIT taught me, besides the basic technical knowledge, the software development skill set to build software, what the most value has been teaching us how to be analytical in our approach towards problems, having the curiosity to learn and figure out and solve complex problems. And I think that's something that IIT has, throughout the different programs that were involved, I was involved in, and the technical challenges that you face through in school, you know, in your classes, has allowed me over the years to be able to look at things differently and try to look at every whether it's a business problem, whether it's a technical problem, whether it's a financial problem, look at it in an analytical way and try to solve it as a basic engineering problem. There has been, I was involved with IT within the Leadership Academy as well, and I felt that I learned a lot from that experience and being involved with the various activities and events that we organize within the campus. Those are the things that I still remember from my time at IIT, and I felt that it did make an impact on me throughout my career.
So, and thank you for sharing that. It's really wonderful for me to hear that. And you know, I know that on Tuesday when I go back to teach more, you know, it's going to be wonderful to talk to the students. And sometimes when you're a student here, you know, it gets a little stressful. There's a lot of work. It's great to be able to talk to them about the very successful alumni that we have. So I'd love to be able to share with them, you know, from your perspective, what are some things that students today, not just at IIT, but around the country, really should be focusing on as they look to a career in innovation in either of your industries?
Okay. For that, I would say, Jamie, the first thing is so much of what they're going to learn is going to be obsolete. So they really need to learn how to...
Let's be careful with that a little bit.
Or it'll transition very quickly.
There you go.
Yeah. And so they really need those lifelong learning skills. The second thing, I touched a little bit on this, my earlier question, was their communication skills in working with others and collaborating across different groups. And besides that, the communication skills can manifest themselves in different ways, whether they're presenting or they're writing papers or they're creating CAD drawings. These are all ways of communicating, or they're working with other groups. But most of these involve communicating in more than 140 characters. Mm-hmm. And so that's something they're still going to have to appreciate.
Yeah, I agree with what Jim has mentioned here, and I'd like to add to that. I think the most value is that you learn through school is learning how to think, how to approach problems, and you do that through classes, through different exercises, and that prepares you to some extent to go to the real world and get a job. However, what really resonates over the years is the ability to, like Jim said, communicate, ability to look at and understand the business side of the world as you go out there. I remember throughout my period at IIT, I had an iPro class, and we went to the CTA and tried to work with the CTA on solving a real problem where we designed the bus tracking system and that today I see a CTA is using all along. I'm not sure if it's the same. I'm sure it's not the same system that we designed, but at least we were trying to solve a real problem. And having over the years, having the most successful people that I have worked with are people that can take their theoretical knowledge and apply it to real problems and actually deliver a solution that meets a business need. Understanding that really coupled with the technical knowledge allow you to be really successful in your career forward.
Well, we are the final panel before a break, so I promised my panelists a quick, fun last question. Would you mind sharing with us your favorite non-classroom experience at IIT?
Okay. Jeremy, when I was thinking about this, a lot of my favorite activities revolved around Keating Hall and Fraternity Row, but I had to edit most of those. So, but
maybe you can share them at the cocktail reception later.
Yeah, but a PG story I can share is one spring break. We were heading to New Orleans, some other students and I, and for whatever reason, a couple students canceled, and the group ended up being myself and five foreign exchange students. So I was the only American in the group. And that week ended up being very broadening for me. So I think that was one of my favorite stories that I can share up here.
Great, thank you.
Besides the Thursday night bog nights going downstairs actually in this building, I'm looking forward to go and check out the bog after many years. Those are the memories that I remember, going to the bog and playing and bowling or playing ping pong or having a drink. But one experience I remember was my first summer staying in Chicago here, going and with my friends from IIT and watching the Air and Water show. We went together, a group of us from IIT here, and took the train and walked to the beach. And it was one of the first times I go to that that area, and so I spent the whole day there. And it was just an amazing experience that I still remember today. Every year when the Air and Water show comes to Chicago, I remember that one first time I went there and saw it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the panel. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there we are. We have started with energy, and we learned that energy is a difficult world, that it's a world where all different types of energy have to be integrated together. We then moved on and we talked about intellectual property, and we found some fascinating issues about patent trolls. But we also found that the patent system is really there to protect innovation and to spur innovation in ways that perhaps many of us hadn't thought of before. And at the end, we got to innovation, and we heard from two of our alumni that have been with very innovative companies doing very innovative things. And we find that in the end, in innovation, if everything's changing very quickly, it's the fundamental issues that remain with you. And the fact is, we heard from both of our speakers that although things change a lot, there's some common things that are necessary. Communication, the ability to use, the ability to think, the ability to follow and be analytical as being very important. And actually for all of us, I think that's a great message to end with. It's what you learn in university that enables you to be yourself. To be able to think for yourself and make your own decisions in the end becomes the most important things. With that, I'd like to thank you all for listening to us. I know there are many different events going on today. I hope you'll enjoy them all, and I know there's a dinner later tonight. And then there's a full raft of issues for tomorrow that look like a lot of fun also. So thank you very much.
So we're going to take about a 15-minute break. There's coffee in the lobby still. Some stimulating conversation, I'm sure, awaits out there. Going to reset the stage, and Darsh Wasan reflects on 50 years in a conversation with John Anderson. So at about 1:45, we'll get that started up here.